Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. Maya shoved the pregnancy test into my hand and almost missed. I am Hannah, 23, and in that moment I misread everything. The little window was still blank, yet my stomach had already dropped. She kept saying my name under her breath like a warning siren. Her fingers dug into my wrist so hard I felt my pulse jump. She whispered that if it was positive, she would disappear somewhere forever. I joked once that she was dramatic. Now I heard real panic. My mind did something petty and stupid and thought of the man first. Not her and not us, just him and the mess wrapped around him. There is your first red flag right there, and I walked past it. He was twice our age and somehow still the center of every thought. Back then I called it love or something close and honestly tried to believe him. The little stick lay on the counter between us like a dare we hated. Maya paced 3 steps, then came back and checked the empty window again. I watched her mouth move without sound and knew she counted the seconds wrong. I wanted to grab her shoulders and reset the whole stupid universe somehow. Instead, I leaned on the sink and tried to sound like the calm adult here. You are probably late from stress. It happens when your body freaks out. I heard myself feed her the same tired line people had used on me. The words sounded thin in that space, and even I did not buy them. Later I would replay that speech again and again and hate my own voice. In the moment, though, I just needed her to stay upright long enough to decide. If she collapsed now, Ethan would still exist and she would feel smaller. I kept thinking that as long as she breathed, we still had choices. Do you know that stubborn hope that if you act calm, the disaster shrinks? Maya avoided his name. I could feel him crowding the room anyway. You should tell him, I said, and added that he deserved to know. Her eyes snapped up like I had slapped her, and she shook her head hard. He will tell me what to do, and I do not want that. That sentence landed heavier than the test, and I pretended not to notice yet. What do you want then? I asked and tried to sound neutral. Her hands went to her stomach like it already hurt, and she just shrugged once. I do not know, I just know I cannot let him decide for me. The timer on her phone buzzed against the counter and we both froze. For 3 seconds neither of us moved, and I hoped it stayed blank forever. Then Maya lunged forward and I watched her shoulders instead of the plastic window. She made this tiny sound that was not quite a sob, not quite a word. I finally looked, and there it was, 2 lines clear enough to punch me. My first thought was not oh no or congratulations, it was he really did this. That probably sounds unfair now, and maybe it is, yet that was honest. Maya grabbed the edge of the counter and asked me if I hated her. I told her I did not and that she needed to breathe or she would pass out. She kept insisting that she messed everything up and that I warned her earlier. Her voice cracked on the word warned and something ugly twisted in my chest. I hated that she remembered my warning more sharply than his promises. Back then I still believed I had done my part by pointing out the risk. Now I know how cheap that comfort was and how easy it felt for me. I could walk away from the test, she could not, and that difference mattered. In that bathroom I clung to the idea that advice equals loyalty, and I hid behind it. Maya sank to the floor and pressed her forehead to her knees and stayed silent. I sat beside her and watched the phone light up with his name from an old text. I knew he was at work somewhere, not thinking about this, and that burned. My thumb hovered over the call button and I realized the next move might tie us to him forever. Ethan pulled Maya's chair closer to the table with one quick tug. She laughed too loudly and gripped his arm like they were in a movie. I watched her knuckles, not her smile, and felt something tighten in my chest. We had agreed not to mention the bathroom, yet it sat between us anyway. He snapped the menu shut and waved for the server before either of us decided anything. You always freeze with choices, he told her while nudging her shoulder. You get excited, then you panic and pick nothing. Maya giggled and let him order for her, and that detail would bother me for weeks. What about you, Hannah, adventurous tonight or sticking with safe? He pointed at my closed menu like he was teasing a teenager. My brain went straight to the test again and I almost laughed. Safe, I answered, because the last time we tried adventurous we got a plus sign. I knew I should start the serious talk, yet every opening felt wrong. Maya stared at her water and twisted the straw wrapper into tiny pieces. He was telling a story about work, something with a client and a crisis. He spoke with that steady older guy confidence that makes you doubt your own nerves. WH. Whenever Maya tried to add something, he touched her wrist and took over again. Let me finish, he murmured, not harsh, just automatic and so practiced. She shrank a little, then offered him that same adoring look. I caught my reflection in the window and saw my jaw lock tight. He finally turned his full attention on me and leaned back in his chair. I owe you big time, he announced, like we were celebrating some joint victory. You keep her grounded, you know that, right? His hand landed on my forearm for emphasis, warm and heavy and too familiar. That compliment hooked me in a way I am still ashamed to admit. Part of me lit up because who does not enjoy feeling essential? Another part heard what he left out, that I also kept her inconvenient. I smiled anyway and told him I just wanted her happy. She is happy, he answered, gaze flicking to Maya with a proud little nod. She tells me all the time how lucky she feels having both of us. The words both of us hit like a chore he assigned without asking. I felt myself drafted into his version of their story and could not step out. My leg bumped Maya's under the table, a small kick meant as a question. She glanced at me, read something in my face, then dropped her eyes fast. Her fingers slid to her lower stomach for half a second, quick and guilty. He missed that tiny movement, which somehow made everything feel even worse. I tried again. So we actually needed to talk about something important. The sentence came out flatter than I wanted, but it cut through his story. He paused, rolled his shoulders once, and looked straight at Maya instead of me. Is this about money, or your job, or what? He listed options like items on a menu, already bored with each one. Maya wet her lips, opened her mouth, then stopped and reached for his hand. Nothing bad, she whispered, which was technically a lie, and watched his face carefully. He exhaled hard and let out a short laugh that did not reach his eyes. Thank God, he said, squeezing her fingers, you scared me there for a minute. He seemed relieved enough that for a second I wanted to keep him relaxed. I heard myself push the topic away with some joke about her stressing over rent. I still hate that moment. I had a clean shot at the truth and I ducked. If I had trusted my own discomfort instead of his mood, maybe things shift. Instead, I backed off and let him steer the night again. Once his worry faded, he grew brighter, almost giddy, like he had won something. He ordered another drink without asking us and started planning out their week. You should stay at my place more, he told Maya while tracing circles on her palm. It would simplify everything and you would not bounce between worlds. That phrase, bounced between worlds, stuck with me later, after everything exploded. At the time it sounded reasonable, even kind, like he wanted stability for her. I nodded a little because on paper a steady plan seemed smart. Inside, though, I felt this quiet alarm, a slow rising itch without a clear source. He talked about introducing her to more of his friends, older and established. People who can guide you, he added, giving me a quick glance across the table. Less chaos, more structure, you know. The word structure landed on my side like a polite insult dressed as concern. Maya rushed to agree with him, promising she could be more organized. Her voice shook so slightly I do not think he caught it. She kept apologizing for being messy and emotional, like she had committed crimes. He brushed off her apologies with little jokes, which somehow made her shrink more. I pushed my chair back and excused myself for the bathroom, heart pounding hard. In the mirror I practiced the sentence, "She is pregnant," over and over. Every version sounded like I was confessing to something criminal. I knew once I spoke there was no way to rewind anything. When I returned, he had moved closer, their heads almost touching over the table. He was describing some travel plan, a future trip, something shiny and far away. Maya looked dazed, both thrilled and overwhelmed, like she had downed strong drinks too fast. The promise of later adventures floated between them, hiding the immediate disaster we carried. I slid back into my seat and he greeted me with a bright grin. There she is, he cheered, lifting his glass toward mine. We were just talking about getting out of town soon, all three of us. His tone suggested I had already agreed, and my skin prickled with unwanted obligation. I might not be able to travel, I answered, keeping my voice steady. Stuff is changing for us right now. I looked straight at Maya when I said it, giving her one more chance. Her foot pressed hard on mine under the table, a clear stop. He noticed the tension then and his smile thinned. What am I missing here? He asked, more curious than kind. His eyes moved from her to me, measuring like he was adding up a beat. Ill. For a heartbeat, I thought she would finally tell him what we knew already. Instead, she leaned in and kissed his cheek, quick and almost desperate. Nothing heavy, she murmured, brushing it away with a tiny laugh. We just had a weird day, that's all. She did not look at me, and that hurt more than I expected. Ethan accepted her answer with a slow nod, yet he kept watching me. Good, he said, tapping the table twice, because I have enough real problems. That line slipped out and changed the air around us. I wondered what counted as real in his world and where we ranked. The check arrived and he grabbed it fast, barely glancing at the total. Let me take care of my girls, he joked, sliding his card across the table. Maya's shoulders relaxed like his words were a promise instead of a warning. I watched the gesture and understood he thought money settled more than bills. Outside, the night felt heavy and sharp against my bare arms. He wrapped an arm around Maya and marched us toward the parking lot. Text me when you get home, Hannah, he called over his shoulder. It sounded less like concern and more like an order disguised as care. Maya climbed into his car, then paused and glanced back at me once. Her eyes looked huge, almost childish, and I saw pure fear flash through. I stepped closer and rested my hand on the open door. We will figure everything out, I told her quietly and meant it more than anything. Ethan started the engine and leaned over to kiss her again, long and possessive. I stepped back and watched the taillights shrink, pulse, then vanish around the corner. My phone buzzed in my pocket with a new message from her. All it said was, "Please do not tell him yet," and that request has never stopped echoing. Ethan walked into my place with 2 heavy bags and a grin. He did not wait to be invited, he used the key Maya had begged me to lend him. Emergency supply drop, he announced, dropping everything on the counter in one loud thud. The sound made Maya flinch, and that was when I knew tonight would break something. He moved around like he owned the space, opening cabinets, rearranging things. You both forget to take care of yourselves, he said, stacking containers in a busy rhythm. We are going to fix that starting now. He kept his back to us, completely unaware of the way Maya's hands trembled in her lap. She sat at the table, shoulders hunched, knees pulled close, watching him with a weird mix of awe and dread. Her phone rested in front of her, the screen still open on our last messages. Please be here when I tell him, she had written, and that please still buzzed in my head. I wanted to walk out and I wanted to stay, both at the same time. Ethan finally turned and wiped his hands on a towel like he had just finished something noble. There, he said, scanning our faces, problem solving 101, start with food. No one reached for anything. The silence stretched long enough that even he had to feel it pressing against him. What happened, he asked, eyes narrowing as he looked from me to Maya. He stepped closer to her, fingertips brushing her shoulder, voice dropping into that gentle older tone he used when he wanted obedience. You texted like the world ended. He glanced at me again, checking whether I was on his team or hers. Maya opened her mouth, then shut it, then looked at me like I could do this for her. I shook my head once small because I was done speaking on her behalf. If I said it, he would blame me later, I could feel that already. This is yours, I whispered, my fingers pressing into the chair until they hurt. She drew in air like she had been underwater too long. Her voice cracked and she pressed her palm against her ribs. I'm late, really late. Her eyes stayed glued to the table, as if the wood might offer a way out. Ethan frowned, confused, already impatient. Okay, he answered slowly, that is not exactly an apocalypse. He folded his arms, waiting for more, as if this was some minor scheduling issue. The gap between their panic and his attitude made my throat feel raw. Maya forced herself to keep going. We checked, she murmured, fingers sliding toward her phone. It is not just late. The last word faded, and she finally lifted her head to look him in the face. Something in his expression changed fast, too fast. First, there was a flash of shock, almost fear, then his features smoothed like someone flipping a switch. Wait, he said, swallowing hard, are you telling me you are pregnant? The second he used the word out loud, the air in that tiny room felt heavier. She nodded once, tiny, like she wished the answer could be undone. His jaw tightened for a heartbeat. I caught that, then a big bright smile appeared. Wow, he exhaled, stepping back as if trying to see her from a distance. That is huge, that is incredible news. The pauses between his words gave him away more than the words themselves. He crossed the room again and pulled her up into a hug that looked almost staged. Maya melted into his chest, clinging like she had been waiting for that exact reaction. Over her shoulder his eyes met mine, and I saw pure calculation. I thought you were about to tell me you were leaving, he joked, squeezing her waist. Instead you dropped this on me. He sounded half thrilled, half trapped. Maybe I am being unfair remembering it that way, but it still rings true. Maya pulled back, wiping under her eyes with the backs of her fingers. Are you mad? She asked, voice barely above a breath. She stood there like someone awaiting a final verdict. That question hit me harder than anything else because it should not have been necessary. Of course not, he answered, touching her cheek with his thumb. I mean, the timing is wild, but we can handle wild. His gaze slipped to me again, quick, like he wanted me to confirm that. I stayed silent because I could not lie for him anymore. He turned to the counter, rummaging through the bags like a man on a mission. We will need proper meals, vitamins, all that, he muttered, pulling things out in a rush. I have done this before, I know the drill. That little reminder of his other life hung there, sharp, and neither of them addressed it. Maya's shoulders loosened, her mouth twitching into a shaky smile. I was so scared you would tell me to get rid of it, she confessed. Her hand drifted toward her flat belly, almost protective now. He heard that and his posture shifted, just slightly, like he had not yet decided. Hey, he replied, laying both palms on the table between them. I would never force you into anything like that. He leaned forward until his face was inches from hers. But we will talk through every option like adults because this affects more than one person. That last line came with weight, and I saw her flinch. He had not raised his voice, yet the emphasis on more than one person was clear. It meant him, his plans, his image, all the things we never saw fully. My stomach knotted because suddenly I realized we were stepping into his juggling act. He straightened and finally addressed me. You are in this with us now, he said, almost amused. Congratulations, Auntie. The word landed wrong, like he was assigning me a role I never agreed to play. Have you told anyone else? He asked, eyes narrowing again. Maya rushed to answer. No, she blurted, only Hannah, I wanted you to hear first. That quick rush to reassure him made me want to shake her. He relaxed at once, shoulders dropping, mouth curling into another controlled smile. Good, he replied, nodding. We keep this between us until we have a plan. Privacy sounded smart, yet somehow it felt like another cage closing. Your family will freak out, he added, turning back to the food. Their generation always freaks out. He sliced the air with one hand, dismissing people he had never met. I thought about how easily he rewrote entire groups when they might disagree with him. Maya watched him like he hung the moon, eager for his guidance. I want you there with me, she whispered, moving closer again. When I go to the doctor, when we figure things out. Every time she said we, I wondered if he heard we or her. He promised everything. We will look at places with more space, he went on. We will check numbers, see what makes sense, do this right. I noticed he kept saying we will without once saying I want this child. While they stood wrapped in that half-hopeful bubble, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I checked it under the table, grateful for the distraction. A coworker had sent a group message about a last-minute shift swap. I accepted quickly, not knowing that switch would show me a different version of his life. 2 days later I walked into work on that swapped shift, already drained. The building felt strangely quiet, most people in a meeting down the hall. I dropped my bag at my station and tried not to replay his promises. It took less than an hour for everything to tilt again. During a break, I scrolled through my phone to avoid thinking. Look at this chaos, my coworker Lauren laughed, leaning over with her own screen. Our management retreat last month was a mess. She shoved her device into my hand before I could prepare for what I might see. The photo showed a group of managers crowded together, all fake relaxed. Near the center, there he was in a pressed shirt, laughing hard at something. His arm wrapped around a woman his age, close, familiar, nothing hesitant there. On her hand resting against his chest, a ring flashed, simple and obvious. My vision tunneled for a second and my grip nearly slipped. "Your boss looks different outside the office," I managed, trying to sound casual. Lauren snorted. "Yeah, Ethan's always on when his wife is around. He plays the devoted husband card hard." Wife. The word hit like actual impact. So blunt I almost laughed out loud. I studied the woman's face, the easy way she leaned into him like she belonged. She looked comfortable, established, part of his world in a way Maya never was. "How long have they been married?" I asked, keeping my tone light. Lauren shrugged. "Forever, I think," she replied, taking her phone back. "They are the company couple, everyone jokes about it, why?" I muttered something about recognizing him from somewhere, then walked off before my voice cracked. In the bathroom at work, I gripped the sink and stared at my reflection. I heard his earlier line again in my head. "I have done this before, I know the drill." He had not lied with that part. He had done this before, apparently with vows and witnesses. The lie was everything else, the unfinished divorce he had described like it was basically history. Realizing that made my skin crawl, because now I saw how easily he edited reality. My hand hovered over my phone, thumb shaking slightly. I could call Maya and drop the truth like a hammer. I could also wait, gather more, check somehow that I was not misreading this. That hesitation, that need for extra proof, cost us days we did not have. I went back to my station and pretended to work, thoughts racing. Every gesture from him replayed with new meaning, every touch on her wrist, every controlling joke. I remembered him telling her they would share news when the timing was right. Now I understood whose timeline he meant, and it was not hers. When my shift finally ended, I walked out into the parking lot with my phone already dialing. The call rang and rang, no answer, then cut to voicemail. I hung up without leaving a message, heart pounding in my ears. For the first time, I wondered if I was already too late to pull her out. I slid the photo across the table before he even sat down. Ethan paused with his hand on the chair, eyes flicking to the screen. For a second I watched his face instead of the picture. He recognized himself instantly, then he kept staring like maybe the image would change. "You picked the spot," I said, folding my arms. "You wanted neutral ground, so here we are." He eased into the seat opposite me, every movement slower than usual. That was the first time I saw him actually calculating with me, not past me. "Good to see you too," he answered, forcing a quick smile. His fingers dragged the phone closer, but he did not touch the display. "Work selfies already," he added, trying for light. "You stalking the management thread now." The joke fell flat, and we both heard it land between us. "That woman?" I asked, tapping the ring on her hand with my nail. "The one leaning on you like she belongs there, who is she?" He finally pressed the screen off, like that would erase anything. He leaned back and started cracking his knuckles, one after another, buying time. "You know this is not the way to open a conversation," he muttered. "We could start with hello, maybe ask how I am." I just stared at him until the performance dropped. I was done cushioning men through truths they created themselves. "That is my situation," he finally said, gaze drifting past my head. "It is complicated, nearly wrapped up, lawyers crawling over every detail." The words came smooth, practiced, like he had recited that sentence for months. He still had not used the word I needed to hear. "Your wife," I pressed, refusing to let him skate around it. He inhaled through his nose, long, irritated. "We have been apart for a while," he replied, shoulders tight. "Paperwork takes forever, you are young, you do not get that yet." That line set my teeth on edge, the little "you do not get it" dagger. It was his favorite move whenever someone threatened his version of events. I did not let him finish the next line. "Maya thinks you are free," I cut in, "she thinks you left that life behind." He winced at her name like I had slapped him with it. "I told her it was moving through the system," he answered, voice low. I never pretended I teleported from one life to another overnight. He rubbed his temples as if our concern gave him a headache. You let her carry that fantasy, I snapped, heat creeping up my neck. You watched her plan a future with you and never corrected it once. My finger tapped the table in short, sharp bursts. Every tap matched another time he had shrugged and called something messy instead of dishonest. He finally leaned forward, elbows planted, eyes locked onto mine. What exactly do you want from me right now? He asked. Confession, apology, promise, what? The way he stacked the options told me how often he had rehearsed them. I want you to understand the scale, I answered, voice shaking. She is carrying your child and you go home to someone else's bed. Saying it out loud like that made my own stomach churn. His jaw twitched just once, then his features reset like a mask. He exhaled through a tight smile and tapped the table with 2 fingers. Okay, he said slowly, this is clearly upsetting you more than necessary. That line nearly drove me over the edge. Upsetting you more than necessary, like my reaction was the real problem. You do not get to grade my reaction, I told him. You are the one splitting your life like a TV schedule. A tiny laugh almost escaped me at how unreal it all sounded. Nothing about this felt like something adults should be calmly arranging. He watched me for a long moment, then his shoulders dropped a fraction. I care about her, he said, quieter now. I care about both of you, and I am not walking away. The way he emphasized not walking away made my skin crawl, not because of loyalty, but because of ownership. She thinks this baby is wanted, I pushed, not letting his tone soften me. She thinks you are excited, she is hanging everything on that. I pictured her hand on her stomach that night, the tiny protective gesture. He did not know about that, and suddenly I hated him for missing it. He spread his hands, palms up, like he was presenting himself as reasonable. I am not a teenager here, he answered. I know what a child means, I know the cost, I know the fallout. Every time he said I know, I heard I control. Then his eyes shifted just slightly, and I saw the pivot coming. Have you talked to her about alternatives? He asked, voice softer now. He slowed down on that last word like it might sneak past me easier. My throat tightened because there it was, the thing I had been waiting to hear and dreading anyway. Say it, I told him. If he wanted to bring it into the room, he would have to own it. He hesitated, then met my stare head-on. Ending the pregnancy, he said, finally clean without decoration. The coffee in my hand suddenly tasted bitter, like it belonged to someone else. He watched my reaction like he was tracking data points. Before you jump at me, he added, one hand slicing the air, listen. That word listen has never felt as threatening as it did right then. She is young, he continued, picking each phrase with care. She has barely started, she does not deserve to be tied down. He shrugged, like he was being generous by considering her future. I am older, my life is loaded already, I cannot blow it apart now. There it was, the real center of his worry. Not her body, not a baby, but his existing structure. The house, the job, the marriage he claimed was crumbling but still used. He wanted her to absorb the impact for decisions he had already made. She deserves honesty first, I shot back, fingers trembling around the cup. She deserves the full picture before she decides anything about her own body. He studied me like I was the obstacle instead of the mess he had created. Honesty can destroy people too, he replied, and that line chilled me more than anything else. How much, I asked, the question spilling out before I could stop it. It surprised both of us. What, he frowned, thrown off for the first time since he arrived. How much do you plan to offer her to make this go away? He leaned back, eyes narrowing now, guard slipping. I am not trying to buy anyone, he answered a little too fast. I am talking about support, medical costs, time off work, all that. Each listed item sounded like part of a transaction, not care. Just say it, I pushed again, because dancing around it was worse. You want to hand her an envelope and call it mercy. His mouth flattened into a hard line. I am willing to be generous, he replied, if everyone stays quiet while we sort this out. There it was, clear as day. Not just the clinic, but the silence he needed wrapped around it. You want me to help, I said, voice low. You want me to push her into something that protects you. My own words made my hands shake under the table. He leaned forward again, brushing crumbs away like they bothered him more than my disgust. She listens to you, he reminded me, eyes sharp now. You are her reality check, you are the one who keeps her from spiraling. He was flattering me and weaponizing that at the same time. If you tell her this is too much right now, he continued, she will believe you. He waited for that to sink in, giving me a tiny nod. You can help her keep every door open, not slam them shut at 19. He made ending the pregnancy sound like the responsible path, like I would be doing her a favor by guiding her there. I stared at him and realized he had drawn me into his equation from the start. Every dinner, every compliment, every little IOU had been building to this. He did not see me as her friend, he saw me as leverage. Once I saw that, something inside me clicked into place and refused to move. If she asks me what to do, I said finally, I will tell her to choose for herself. My voice steadied as I spoke. And I will tell her everything you just laid out, including the woman in that picture. His jaw clenched so hard I heard his teeth grind for a second. You are overreacting, he snapped, the calm veneer fracturing. You are turning a complicated adult situation into some villain story. He raked a hand through his hair, messing it up for the first time since I knew him. That photo is old, everyone at work knows about us, nothing about that changes how I feel about Maya. Old or not, I answered, it changes what she thinks she agreed to. I pushed my chair back a little, not enough to leave yet, just enough to breathe. You want her to handle all the consequences while you keep your safe life intact. Saying it out loud like that made the whole dynamic impossible to ignore. He watched me with something close to anger now, not just annoyance. You think she can actually handle raising a child with you as backup, he demanded. She can barely manage a schedule, she panics over small things. He spoke like he was describing a sweet but incapable kid, not a partner. I know, I replied quietly, and the admission hurt. She is not ready to do this alone, and right now alone is what you are offering. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it again because we both understood that part. He could promise visits and money, but not an actual shared life. You tell her anything about my marriage before we have a plan, he warned, and you will blow up her entire world overnight. He pointed at my phone, the gesture sharp. She will not just hate me, she will crash in every area of her life. He said it with certainty, like he had seen women implode before and filed it under experience. That was the part that twisted me up the most. He was not totally wrong about the implosion risk. I pictured her face if I showed her the photo with no preparation. I pictured the way she already clung to him like a lifeline. You are asking me to lie by omission, I said, chest tight. Not forever, he replied, already softening his tone again. Just until we figure out the best outcome for everyone involved. He made best outcome sound like a math problem instead of a person's entire life. I stood up before he could roll out another version of reasonable. The chair scraped across the floor, loud enough to make him glance around. I am not part of your damage control, I told him, hand gripping the backrest. You created this, you can own it, I am done covering for you. He rose too, slower, searching my face for any sign of surrender. If she keeps it, he said quietly, I will be there as much as I can. It was the closest he came to anything resembling commitment. Even then, the phrase as much as I can rattled around my head like a warning. I picked up my phone, the screen still dark, the photo hidden again. You have one advantage left, I told him. You can be the one to tell her the truth before I do. His eyes flashed, and for the first time he looked genuinely uncertain. Walking out of that place, my hands would not stop shaking. I knew I was about to detonate her version of love either way. Either he confessed and shattered it himself, or I did it from the outside. Every step toward the door felt like walking toward a choice I could never unmake. I knocked until my knuckles hurt, then almost turned around. The door opened fast and Maya stood there with her phone in her hand. Her eyes were swollen, not from sleep, from something harsher. Did you talk to him? She asked, before I even crossed the threshold. I stepped inside and closed the door with my heel. Yeah, I answered, dropping my keys on the table, I did. My voice sounded wrong in my own ears, thin and rough. She froze in the middle of the room and waited like a defendant. What did he say? She pushed, fingers digging into her sleeves. She tried to smile and could not hold it. Is he still okay with everything? Is he freaking out? What? Every word piled on my tongue until I almost choked. He left something out, I said. That was the soft version, and I hated myself for it. She blinked slowly, trying to process, then shook her head once. Left what out? There is nothing else to leave out. I pulled my phone from my pocket and unlocked it with clumsy hands. My thumb hovered over the photo for a beat too long. One tap and there he was, arm around that other woman. I turned the screen toward her and watched her face, not the picture. At first she just frowned, confused. Who is that? She asked, stepping closer, squinting at the ring. Then she recognized his smile, the easy way he held the other woman. Her whole body went still, like even breathing would change something. That is his coworker, right? She tried again, reaching for the hope. Some office thing, some old photo, I do not know. I swallowed hard because this was the point where I could still back down. He called her his wife at work, I said, present tense. Her hand flew to her mouth and stayed there. I watched her eyes arch the image for some technicality that cleared him. Nothing in it moved, but I could see her entire version of him falling apart. I asked my coworker, I added, everyone there knows about them. She sank onto the couch without looking where she sat. Stop, she whispered, shaking her head, just stop for a second. I stayed standing because I felt like sitting would pin me there forever. Silence filled the gap while she stared straight ahead at nothing. He told me it was almost over, she said at last, voice flat. Not perfect, but ending, wrapping up all that stuff. She laughed once, short and cracked, like it hurt to push air out. I believed every single version he gave me. I knelt in front of her so she could not avoid my face. That is not everything, I forced out, stomach twisting. He also wants you to think about ending the pregnancy. The word still felt heavy in my mouth, even after hearing it from him. Her hand dropped from her lips to her stomach in one quick movement. He told you that? She asked, eyes wide. Not me, you. I nodded and told her about the coffee shop, his careful phrases, his offers. By the time I got to the part about money, her hands were shaking. How much? She asked, and that question cut deeper than I expected. Enough that he called it generous, I replied, forcing myself to hold her gaze. He said he would cover everything and then some if it stayed quiet. The word quiet hung between us like something toxic. She stood up so fast I had to rock back. That is insane, she snapped, pacing 3 steps and then back again. He cannot just decide that and hand me cash like it is a parking ticket. Her breathing grew shallow, shoulders moving in quick jerks. Sit down, I urged, reaching for her wrist. She pulled away and kept moving, like the floor was burning under her feet. I need you to hear the whole thing, I pushed, trying not to raise my voice. If you still want him after that, fine, but you need it all. Her eyes met mine, and there was this wild mix of betrayal and stubborn loyalty. You already hate him, she said, accusing and wounded at the same time. You never trusted that we made sense. You think I am stupid. Each sentence hit like a separate jab, and I knew I deserved some of them. I think he has power you do not see, I answered, trying to stay steady. And I think he uses it without caring what it does to you. I wanted to grab her by the shoulders and shake the belief out of her. Instead, I breathed in deep and pushed the anger down. She sank back onto the couch, as if her legs finally gave out. Did he say anything good? She asked, voice hoarse. Anything at all? I hated that she still went looking for scraps from him. He claimed he cares, I replied, but most of what I heard was about him. Her hands covered her face and her shoulders started shaking. For a moment I thought she was crying, then I realized she was laughing. Of course, she choked out, of course he made this about his life first. The sound coming out of her scared me more than any sob. She dropped her hands and stared at the ceiling. So I am his secret, she said slowly, and this baby is his mess to manage. She touched her stomach again, lighter this time, like checking it was still there. I did not sign up to be anyone's problem child. Then do not be, I answered, the words leaving before I could edit them. You still get to choose what happens next, with or without him. As soon as I said it, I realized how big that promise was. Choice sounds nice until you remember it also means responsibility. She turned toward me, eyes red and unusually clear. If I keep this baby, she asked, will you stay? My throat closed and my vision blurred for a second. She looked terrified, not of pregnancy, but of standing there alone. Yes, I said without thinking, without pausing, just yes. It came out solid, like the one thing I was sure about. She swallowed and pushed further. If I end it, will you stay then too? The second question knocked the air out of me worse than the first. I sat down beside her, leaving a small space between us. I am not going anywhere, I told her, feeling my chest burn. Whatever you decide, I live with you through it. She stared at my hands for a long time. Do you think I should do it? She asked finally, really do it? My brain screamed with all the things Ethan had said, all his reasons. Out loud, I took a different path. I think you should picture both futures, I answered slowly. One where you walk into that clinic, one where you do not. Then ask which one you can wake up with every morning. It was the closest I could get to honest without steering her. She closed her eyes and leaned her head back. I already know, she whispered after a moment, I just hate that I know. A tear slid down near her ear, and she did not wipe it away. I keep seeing a kid, not an appointment slip. That was the first time I let myself see it too. Not just a problem, not just a test result, but an actual person. I saw Maya older, exhausted, laughing with someone smaller who had her eyes. The image scared me and warmed something inside me at the same time. Then you call the doctor, not him, I said. We find out what you need and we do it ourselves. My heart pounded because I could hear Ethan's voice in my head screaming about consequences. I pushed that aside and focused on the hand gripping mine. Maya reached for her phone and stared at his name. She hovered over the call button, thumb trembling. Maybe he deserves to hear this from me, she muttered. I watched her battle play out right on her face. If you call him, I warned, he will talk you in circles. You know how he gets, you have seen it. She tightened her grip on the device like it had turned into a weapon. I want to hear him lie to me one more time, she said, voice cold now. She hit call before I could stop her. The line rang twice, then he picked up with his usual smooth tone. Hey kid, came through the speaker, too casual for what he had done. Maya flinched, but she did not end the call. I know about your wife, she said, skipping any greeting. The silence on his end lasted just a little too long. Then his voice arrived, slower, more careful. Where did you get that from? He asked, sharp under the calm. I saw the photo, she answered, fingers digging into my knee. I heard it at your office, everyone knows I was the only one who did not. Her words shook, but they still landed strong. On the other end, he exhaled like someone had punched him. Maya, it is not what you think, he started, sliding straight into his usual pattern. It is old, it is complicated, it is basically done, I was going to explain. I could hear the speech I had already heard once. This time, she did not let it wash over her. You were going to explain after what? She cut in, raising her voice. After I got rid of this, after you rearranged your calendar. He went quiet, then tried a different angle. I care about you, he insisted, I am just trying to protect everyone. Stop saying protect, she snapped. You mean protect yourself. Her breathing picked up short and harsh, but she kept going. I am keeping this baby with or without you, and I am done hiding. The line crackled with the force of his next inhale. That is a huge mistake, he warned, words clipped now. You are not thinking long-term, you are reacting, you will regret this. Hearing him try to reshape her fear into obedience made my hands curl into fists. I regret trusting you, she answered, voice low now. That is enough regret for one lifetime. He started to talk again, faster this time, throwing out plans and offers. Maya pulled the phone away from her ear and stared at the screen. I watched her thumb hover over the red button, shaking. Do it, I whispered, unable to hold back. Her eyes met mine, full of hurt and something fierce. She hit end, then blocked his number with 3 quick taps. For a moment, the quiet in that room felt unreal. Then the reality of what she had done hit her, and she folded into me. I just blew up everything, she gasped, clinging to my hoodie. I wrapped both arms around her and tried not to cry too. That woman already existed, I said into her hair. You did not break his life, you just stopped cooperating with the secret version. I was not sure if I fully believed my own words yet. But I knew she needed a different story than the one he gave her. The next days blurred into a series of practical moves. Calls to a clinic for prenatal checks, not procedures. Looking up resources I never thought I would need this early in my life. All while checking the door because some part of me knew he would not disappear quietly. On the third day, the pounding started. Heavy fists on the wood, voice muffled but unmistakable. "Hannah, open up," Ethan shouted, anger punching through the barrier. Maya froze in the hallway, one hand on the wall, eyes huge. I pressed a finger to my lips and motioned her back. He kept knocking, calling both our names now, alternating between calm and rage. "You are making this worse," he yelled, "we can talk like adults." Every thud made my ribcage feel tighter. "We are not here," Maya whispered, which made zero sense. Her whole body shook and she sank down right where she stood. I crouched beside her while the banging continued. We listened to the sound of his frustration echo through the tiny space. "Think about your future," his voice carried through the door. "You cannot handle this, neither of you can handle this alone." The word alone hit her hardest, I could see it on her face. I gripped her hand and squeezed until she winced. "We are not alone," I said, forcing each word out steady. "We have each other and we will figure out the rest." It sounded fragile and brave. At the same time. She nodded once, tears sliding down, lips pressed tight together. After a while the noise stopped. We heard footsteps fading, then nothing. I did not move for a full minute, waiting to be sure. Only then did I let out the breath I had been holding. He came back the next day with a softer tactic. This time he slid notes under the door, corners scraping the floor. Promises of support, lines about lawyers, words like stability and responsibility. Maya refused to touch them, so I scooped them into a drawer. The third visit never happened. I do not know if his wife caught on or if work tightened around him. Maybe he finally realized we were not opening that door. Either way, the hallway stayed quiet, and the quiet felt earned. Now I am here on the couch again, months later. Maya naps with her head in my lap, one arm over her bump. The baby shifts under her shirt, a small rolling movement against my thigh. Every time that happens, I remember the first test on my bathroom sink. People love to ask if I hate Ethan. The honest answer changes depending on the day. Sometimes I picture his face and my stomach flips with anger. Other times I just feel tired and strangely grateful he is not inside our daily life. I still replay my own part more than his. The nights I stayed quiet, the jokes I made to keep things light. The way I liked being called the grounded one while everything slipped out of control. I am not proud of how long it took me to pick a side. Maya stirs and blinks up at me. "Are you still writing that thing?" she mumbles, half awake. "Yeah," I answer, brushing hair away from her eyes. "I am trying to get it down before we start rewriting it in our heads." She snorts softly and shifts, pressing my hand over the moving spot. "Make sure you tell them I was an idiot," she says. "And that you were too, just in a different way." Her honesty stings, but it also feels like oxygen. "Deal," I say, feeling another tiny kick under my palm. I do not know what this kid will think when they hear about him someday. I do not know if Ethan will try to come back when it is safe for his image. What I do know is this. The night she chose not to call that clinic, she chose us instead of him. Not the fairy tale he sold, not the hush money, not the half-life. Just the messy, crowded version where two scared girls grow up fast. And I am still here, counting each small kick like a promise we actually kept.